y'all could only hear how good that sounds up here. That sounded really good.
Maybe we can.
All right, I started in last week. I guess I inadvertently started a series last week with my introduction to Jesus with John chapter 1. And I kind of had a little too much, so we're bleeding out. I decided to go ahead and make this I guess a 4-part series. Because John is really divided into 4 sections. You got, chapter 1 is really the introduction. It gives this wonderful dialogue. In the beginning there was God, and God was, and so on. So it gives this wonderful introduction. In chapter 2 is called the sign book, because it's the book of signs. And this is really where you see God's miracles. In chapter 3, we'll get into the glory of Jesus. And then finally, the epilogue in chapter 4. So right now, we're in chapter 2. If we could stand, I'm going to read chapter 2 real quick. It's not that long. On the 3rd day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples, and there they stayed for a few days. When it was almost time for Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at the table exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove all of them from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market." His disciples remembered that it is written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." The Jews then responded to him, "What sign could you show us to prove your authority to do all this?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days." They replied, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you are going to raise it in 3 days?" But the temple he had spoken of was his body. After he raised from the dead, his disciples recalled what he had said. Then they believed the scripture and the words that Jesus had spoken. Now, while he was in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, many people saw the signs he was performing and believed in his name. But Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all people. He did not need any testimony about mankind, for he knew what was in each person. That's been the reading of the word. One of the things that I found extremely interesting, and believe it or not, I actually just noticed it when I set my Bible up here to start this, at the beginning of this service. My Bible has all the miracles of each book laid out in it, which is kind of cool. And for this to be the book of signs and the book of miracles, I was looking down the page here and I realized in the book of John there are 8 miracles that were performed. Whereas in the book of Matthew there was 20, Mark has 18, and Luke has 20. So that tells me that John was really selective in the miracles that he showed. Now, did Jesus only perform 8 or 20 miracles? No. I'm sure sometimes that he performed 20 in a day. But these were the miracles that were selected so that we would believe. And I think that's kind of noteworthy. So let's go back to the beginning of the chapter. It says, on the 3rd day a wedding took place. Well, I'm kind of thinking words are there for a purpose. So what was the 3rd day? 3rd day of the week? Probably was, because weddings in this time typically took place on Wednesday. Saturday was a holy day. I'm sorry?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Or could it be that this could be the 3rd day of Jesus' ministry? He had just chose at this point he has 5 disciples, right? He had just been baptized by John the Baptist. So he's in his 3rd day of ministry. It's time to reveal himself to the world. What better place to do this is at a wedding? And most of us were at a vow renewal or a wedding, I guess, so to speak, yesterday. Which, by the way, I want to give some credit. The flowers that Billy and Ann left are absolutely gorgeous. But the wedding, especially in this time and age, this was a celebration that would generally last for several days. It's the beginning of life as it should be as a couple. So should this be the best time of your life? The day you marry your partner that you're going to be with for the rest of your life? So they're in Cana in Galilee, which is, if you look at the map, this is about 9 miles northeast of Nazareth where Jesus grew up. So he's still right there. He's still in, this is like Ludowici to Jessup or Ludowici to Hinesville. So they're all at this wedding, and I'm kind of led to believe that this is a family. It doesn't say, but I'm thinking that this is they're either related to this couple or they're really close with this family because they're involved in Jesus' mother Mary is involved in the wedding. The disciples are there and they're having a good time. So all of a sudden they run out of wine. This is a social faux pas. This is such a serious thing that they could have not only faced social embarrassment, they could have been sued legally for not having enough wine at the wedding. Because basically what they're saying is, you know, this groom is going to take this woman and in this day, I don't know how this changed, but at this time, the groom's family paid for everything, not the bride's. Now the bride pays for everything. But in this day, the groom paid for everything. So what he's saying when he runs out of wine is, well, I'm going to take this woman, but I can't afford to keep her like I'm supposed to. You're broke. That's embarrassing, isn't it? So, Jesus' mom comes up and he says, hey, Jesus, they're out of wine here. You need to do something. It's time to show yourself. Because remember now, Mary is thinking, she's got all these memories in back in her memory banks where the angels came to her, and she knows who Jesus is. Nobody else does, but she knows. So she's like, son, it's time to show yourself. And how does Jesus reply to this? Woman, why do you involve me? My hour has yet to come. Now, I don't know about y'all, but when I was growing up, or even today, if my mom was still alive, and I talked to my mom like that, I would probably have gotten backhanded. But, and so did I. So I did some digging. This is not an insult in this day. One of the bad things about translating words from Hebrew to Greek through all the different languages, there is not always a perfect word to describe what you're trying to say. And I think what Jesus was really trying to do was try to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, I know your mom, but you got to know who I am, and you do. And he was trying to make that distinction. It was a stern, right now you're not being my mom, right now I need you to be one of my followers, on that side. You need to let me do my thing. And I think it's also kind of symbolic. He says that he does not do anything until his Father tells him to. So I'm thinking he must have prayed at that moment, made a little prayer, and God said, we need to make some wine here. You need to save this marriage. So he has them go and fill up these stone vats, which the other part of what I learned this week, they were not jars of clay or porcelain, they were stone, because these jars were used for cleansing. The stone was what would hold the bacteria out the best. It was the cleanest vessel that they were antibacterial, so to speak, back in the day. So Jesus tells the disciples, and you notice that they didn't question. And it's not like they got a garden hose over there. Turn it off! Come on! Jesus, turn it off! They don't have a garden hose to fill these vats up. This is manual work. They're going to the well. They don't have a pump, so they're going to run that wine down, come up with probably a pretty heavy bucket, and they're probably fire brigade over to the vats, and they fill it to the brim. Why? Why didn't they fill them halfway? You got, each of them holds 20 to 30 gallons. You got 6 of them, so there's anywhere from 120 to 180 gallons. That's a lot of water, guys. That's a lot of water. You know how heavy all that water would be? They fill it to the brim. And it never says why, and I never found in the research why. Here's my thought on it. This is my take. They filled it to the brim so that nobody could say that anything else could be added. There wasn't no, hey, I got a wine packet. I'm going to pour one of the little powder substitutes in there. Ain't nobody could say that. It was a good day. There was no room for anything. And I think that's symbolic too, because we can add love to our life, compassion, self-respect. You know, all of these things we can add other people to our lives. But what does it really do? In the end, what we need is a transformation, which is what God does for us. He transforms us just in such a manner as he did with the wine. And he didn't make cheap wine. He made good wine. Now, somebody asked me earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and break this out. A lot of people say that Christians can't drink, right? Yet, here's Jesus making wine. Here's what I think on that. Have I ever gotten drunk? Yes. Y'all know I have. Do I drink occasionally? Yes. Does the Bible say you can't drink? Show it to me. It's not in here anywhere. But I think what it does say, and wine in this time was it's pretty clear it was watered down 2 and 3 times. So could you get drunk on this wine? Probably. But you had to work to do it. God doesn't want us to allow anything that takes control away from us. It takes control away from God. So, is drinking, can you drink responsibly? Absolutely. But if you drink in excess to the point of drunkenness, and that's when you allow Satan to come in and do those things, and allows you to do those things that you're not so proud of the next day. So, that's my answer to the person that asked me earlier. So, he takes after he turns it into wine, he takes this first dip in the first glass of wine, and where does it go? To the master of ceremonies, right? The guy in charge of putting this whole kit and caboodle together. Why? Any ideas? Justification. Justification, because he wants his miracle tested right now. Not tomorrow, right now. So that it is verified and true on the spot. And I asked earlier about miracles. God performs miracles fairly regularly. But I think some miracles are overrated, so to speak. One of the biggest you hear is the sun coming up. Is that a miracle? No. It's nature. It happens. It's in the flow of nature. Having a baby, we say is a miracle, and the miracle of life is a miracle. But having a baby, it's nature's course, is it not? What we're talking about is these things that you don't see every day, and things that can't happen in the natural course of nature. That's what we're talking about as signs from God. Does that make sense? I see a couple with those puzzled looks on their face. So, we're running out of time, kid. Jesus went on to Jerusalem after this wedding. And when I first read this, I was like, wow, Jesus really lost his temper in there. But did he really? This is another one of his signs that shows us that he is in control. Because if you sit down and you break it down like I did, he took the time to make a whip first. How long would that take to make a whip by hand in this time? Was Jesus out of control? No. He knew exactly what he was doing. This was probably fun at this point. Let me clear this house out. There's a few houses I'd like to go clear out. But he wanted to make a statement. He wanted to show, hey, this is me, guys. It's like, have y'all heard that song, This Is Me? I love music. So. He's making a statement. Here I am. Let the bullets fly. Ain't nobody gonna mess with me. I am who I am. And you're not going to turn my Father's house into a mockery. Isn't that what he was doing? This whole time, and this is his third day of ministry. Third day. Wow. Third day in the job, and he's taking control. Now, and going back to the wedding, one of the other things I found really, really interesting, Jesus' first miracle, first recorded miracle, was turning wine into water, right? Or water into wine, I'm sorry. His first miracle is turning water to wine at a private, keyword private, wedding. Why didn't he go into Jerusalem where he had a crowd of thousands and do this? Why does he do it privately? This miracle was more for his disciples than anyone else. At this point, remember, he has 5 disciples. You got sons of Zebedee, Philip and Nathaniel, Simon. That's it. 5 of them. Simon, son of Zebedee, there's 2 of those. So once he has the disciples on board, they're ready to go out and spread the message to the rest of the world. And isn't that a great example? So what should we do? We need to follow that example, don't we? Because my God is real. My God's not dead. Great set of movies, I watched them too. We are given an example, and we are getting ready to go into John chapter 4, I'm ahead of myself. John chapter 3, where Nicodemus comes into the picture, which I've talked about Nicodemus before. But that is going to start what they call the glory period for Jesus. And I think maybe I better stop there because I'm running out of time, or I've run out. Now, with that being said, we have a whole bunch of disciples here ready to lead people to Jesus. And if you want to take that step today, if you have never taken that step, if you want to retake that step, if you just want to have somebody pray for you this morning, this altar is open for you today. Come up, and Scott will lead us in the song of prayer. Stacy will play the piano, and we will pray for whoever wants to come up this morning. Amen? Amen. Oh, how perfect.
All right, you start 7:01 with me. We all get to heaven.
What a day of rejoicing that will be.
That's right, first and last.
Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing His mercy and His grace, in the nations bright and blessed, He'll prepare for us a place. We all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be, when we all God, thank you for once again allowing us to come together, and thank you for all the signs that you have given us, and just thank you for the love that you show us each and every day, every minute, every hour. We're thankful for everything that you do for us, and please take and hold us in your arms and carry us through this week, and just let us remember to spread that message and be good disciples, for we know that you are the one and only true God, and we do worship you, and just thank you for everything. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.